Hi guys, welcome to Grooves of Influence. This week's guest is Eli. Eli, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, I'd love to. My name is Eli Winde. I'm a singer, songwriter, producer in Nashville, Tennessee. I have been doing this for going on 4 or 5 years now. And yeah, just working in the music industry and happy to talk music anytime I get the chance.
Right. Me too, man. I'm in the same boat as you. And so, like every week, we start with the most impossible question to answer as a musician. What is the most influential album to you? And you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So gosh, that's heck of a question to answer. And there's so many that I could talk about. Ones that maybe earlier in my life may have been really meaningful to me, or ones that I'm listening to right now. But this album, it's called Friends ? By Jordy Searcy. And sorry, not Friends. That's a song. It's called Love Songs by Jordy Searcy. But it's it's just a record that hit me when I was in college, senior year. I had heard about his music. He's also a local Nashville artist. Was in Nashville. Now he's in San Diego, but in Nashville at the time. And he came and played a show at my college, and just seeing him that senior year and hearing him sing the music himself and being like, dang, this guy means it. And he's just an incredible writer, and I really admire the production that went into the tracks as well. So yeah, just an album that hit me right where I was at in college, about to graduate, trying to figure out life, what that was going to look like. So yeah, it's a great album.
That's awesome. Where did you go to college at?
Yeah, so I transferred here to Nashville to finish my bachelor's degree. I got a degree in commercial music and recording technology from Trevecca Nazarene University, which is a small private school here in Nashville. Yeah, it was great. And the coolest thing from it were just the internships that I got, and I got to meet some great musicians and engineers and producers that have kind of opened a couple of doors for me to do what I do now in the music industry here. So yeah.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And so going back to the album, you said it hits you at an important part of life. I mean, what about the album? What was it for you that stood out?
Sure. Yeah. I like it, I think, because it speaks to a lot of just the turmoil you have as a young person, not just relationally. And pop music really feels like it tends to really lean on the I'm in love, or I just went through a breakup. And those are two huge themes that are great. But to be able to write about something like just a friendship that fell out of place that you wish would be healed, or about like money and how as a musician, I'm probably never going to have a ton of money, but you want someone to love you for who you are, or just things, jealousy in your musicianship, and looking at someone else and thinking, gosh dang, look at everything that they're doing. And all of the feels, not only just as like trying to figure out your place in the world, but specifically as a musician, it felt like it really spoke to me.
I know you kind of were hitting on a couple tracks there.
Yeah.
What were some, were those kind of the main standouts for you there?
Yeah,
Friendship.
Friendship is great. I also love, honestly, Jealousy is the one that hits closer to home than anything, especially because it's so easy to feel like, especially in the music industry in Nashville, that everything's competitive. And I like to say, like, you can throw a rock and hit a guy that's a better musician than you are in Nashville. Like, everyone's good. And if you're living a life where you want to compete and you want to be the best, you should want to do your best work that you can do. But as soon as you start comparing yourself to other people around you, all of a sudden it gets depressing. You got to think of it as you're here to grow, they're here to grow. And the song looks kind of in on the heart of a musician and says, man, I do get jealous, and I do let that creep in, and I shouldn't. Yeah. So especially as a young musician, there's so many people, you look at producers and artists that you look up to who are in their 30s, and you're 21 and you go, man, I'll never get there. And you discount the 14 years that they have on you doing the thing that you want to be doing. And yeah, it's a humbling song to think about.
It's really raw, honest.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little bit funny too. it's almost a little bit comedic.
Yeah, there's some comedic humor in there, an irony that's really fun.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, I think it shows Jordy, just how much of a true singer-songwriter he really is. Like, it's just like, it's like one of those, when I hear songs like this that, aren't traditional pop, you could say, it makes me definitely think of like some of those 70s singer and songwriters where, they just wrote about their life. It wasn't as much, like you said, always love songs. It was just simple things sometimes. And I mean, as a producer, I think that was a live recording, right?
Yeah, it was. It's a live recording that I think they dressed up after the fact. But yeah, it's great. Yeah, the way it pulls out into the outro and it's just him in a living room is so cool.
Yeah, it just makes you feel like you're just sitting next to him.
Yeah.
There was a line in that song. I mean, if this is one of your standout songs, I'm curious what your take is.
Yeah.
And it was very intense. Born with blood on hand.
Yeah. Let me see. I have the lyrics. Let me pull them up here.
Yeah.
Let me see. Yeah, because the first two times through the chorus, the lyric is, where's it at? I was born with a gavel in my hands, just talking about judging other people. Like ever since birth, I've wanted to point fingers and say, better than that. I'm different. Gosh, where is the line?
It was near the end.
Yeah. Jealousy always gets the best of me. I was born with blood on my hands. But when I try to see myself with honest eyes, I just want to be who I think I'm better than. And we're all guilty of it. And I think it's just a different way of saying, like, we're guilty of all the things that we want to point our fingers at someone else for doing. And it's a really visceral, raw way of saying it.
It stands out. I mean, definitely in his music, because a lot of the rest of the album is very upbeat. Even his sad song is like not sad. Like, I think back, I think it is better.
Yes.
I think that was a song. I was like, this should be a sad song. It should sound sad lyrically, like the themes he was getting at, but musically, I didn't really feel it.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting that then you get to that song and you're like, oh, this is definitely a different experience, from the rest of the album.
A lot more introspective. Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask, if there was some other songs that kind of stood out to you.
Production wise, I have a couple other notes, but I really love, Friendship is awesome. I just love how sparse it is and how much he uses like negative space and silence to really let the vocal sing and shine in the song. There's hardly anything other than bass and then some really fun, like detuned synths that are going on that just add atmosphere, but it's mostly just the vocal super close and tight, and it lets it sparkle and shine. And he gets out of the way of his own thing with the production while still making choices that sound really cool and are in that sort of like vintage tape effects kind of thing. That's really cool. Yeah,
he almost sounds like nostalgic.
Yes.
A little bit. You could almost say he's got kind of that old soul type of thing.
It's all been Yep.
Yeah, his production is tight. And it's interesting in that song, and like a lot of his other songs, his use of a bridge.
Yes.
I was like, man, when I really started listening to it, I was like, okay, this song's got a really, a bridge that really shifts the song in a way that is a different direction. And it feels like that's kind of almost part of his trademark sound, it seems like.
Yeah. Yeah, the bridge really opens up, and I think strings come in, and it's super full and lush all of a sudden when you come from a song that's so small and sparse. It's the scene changes in his songs are really good. Yeah.
Are these elements that you try to implement in your own production when you're making your own music, or kind of what's your thought process around that?
For sure. Yeah. Anytime you can get, I guess I said singing changes, that's kind of a phrase that I've heard people use before, but just anything that can catch a listener's ear and keep them involved with a song. Like for that song specifically, it's that it's such an intimate sound, and then right when you think that you've got it, I know how this song's going, all of a sudden it's big and it's lush and it serves the song. So yeah, you're always trying to catch a listener's ear and make sure that they're not drifting off and losing interest in the song. And I think he does that really well. And that's something that I admire and I want to do more of and be better at. It's just transitions in a song that keep a listener interested, but also serve the song. It's not doing a trick just to do a trick so that you can say you did something in the song, but where that song opens up serves the lyric. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, listening to it, it definitely feels like his music's storytelling and like very visual, and like the music plays along with it typically pretty well. Or, you know, in the song like I was mentioning before, where lyrically and theme wise it doesn't match, it just gives a different meaning to almost a sad song. Like instead of like, you know, I'm sad, I'm down, I'm crying, you know, like that type of feel. It's almost like I felt like I was like marching away.
Yeah,
like,
you're like
I'm
proud
like
that you came to the decision that you did. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of interesting the way that the music tells the story of his lyrics, as much of a lyricist as he is.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's another song that Better is another one that I love. I mean, I love all of them, but just the way it builds and saying that, you know, I don't think that I deserve better. And that's why I'm stuck in this relationship. And as soon as you're realizing that, man, I do deserve something where I feel loved and I deserve love, all of a sudden it's like it makes sense to you. And the way it kind of builds to a key change and then music terms, but you hit the flat 7 off of the key change and it rolls back down to the original key, and then the song kind of like de-escalates and you come back down to home and rest. It's so good, man. I love just the way that the way he builds to a key change but then doesn't stay in that new key and he brings it back down. It's masterful the way he uses music theory to pull his song together too. Yeah,
to tell more of the story he's trying to tell. That's what stood out consistently with his music. And that key change, it felt so uplifting. It felt so like we made it, you know. And it's kind of cool when you see artists do that, you know, just a little more complex than your typical pop music, you know. Definitely it's got that pop catchy feel, but it's not simple, you know. And I think that's what's something I noticed too throughout it. I was like, all these like I liked how you said the use of space.
Yes.
And I mean, he uses space all the time. Like some of these, he like cuts out all the production, says something, and then continues. I'm like, dude, there's so much detail into every one of these songs. Even though it's pop, it's not simple, you know.
Yeah, it's just one layer deep. Not that there isn't complexity in modern pop songs. I don't want to bash pop producers. They're good at what they do, and it's incredible. But yeah, it's just one step further. There's other artists like Ben Rector, if you're familiar with his music, or that are all kind of in those same circles. And I love that. I guess it's kind of like adult contemporary is what you might call that genre, where it's pop, but it's a little more introspective or singer-songwritery. Yeah, super cool. Yeah. There's a line in that Better song that he says, I'm alone with or without you. And just, man, I lost me. Where is it? I lost me before I found you. I'm alone with or without you is just, you have to sit and think about the lyrics. But when you think about them, you're like, dang, that's the feeling of realizing that, you know, it's just better to walk away. And yeah, man, it's a good song.
At the moment, were you dealing with a situation like that? You know,
I'd been through one. I was kind of more in the Rich territory for the song. Rich is what hit me is dating the girl that would wind up becoming my wife, and just thinking, man, I'm about to graduate and I don't know what the heck I'm doing. A music degree doesn't guarantee a paycheck or a job anywhere, really, even though you wish it did. And just thinking, man, I want to be able to give my girlfriend, my wife, everything, and I'm really gonna have to make this work and pray that she's okay with what I have now. Yeah, Yeah, I definitely been through a situation that was similar to Better, but the one that was hitting me a lot at the time is that other one, Rich. It's such a good song too.
I could see it definitely as you're progressing out of college. You're like, I'm about to go and do this music thing.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be broke, you know? I mean, it's just the reality of doing music, you know,
Uh-huh.
kind of getting your start. I mean,
Yep.
it's a part of the adventure, though.
Waiting tables. That's what everyone does here. You work a coffee shop or you wait tables, and then in the evenings and in your free time, you're writing songs.
It's
Yep.
awesome, man. I
Uh-huh.
mean, it's kind of funny, you know, you kind of get to look back at those situations, though, I think with a fondness, like, of getting, it's just a part of the journey. It's almost like, I always think about it, it's like your life's a movie, very much so,
Yeah.
you know, one step at a time, you know, you're going to be able to look back and be like, you know, I did it.
And I think that's part of the going back to like the jealousy song and all the ideas that are wrapped up in that. It's so easy to only look forward and be like, man, I wish I was there. I wish I was there. I wish I was even further along. But to just stop and take a look back and see, man, I've come so far and I'm thankful for every step of the way and I don't know, every bump in the road that I've been through. And that's what gives you, the confidence to keep going as you see the journey that it's been and that it's been good. Yeah.
And all the memories you get to make along the way, man. All those times, you know, running out of the coffee shop to the gig,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, so
Uh-huh.
it's kind of fun. So when it comes to producing music, like what are you doing down there in Nashville right now?
Yeah. So I have been working a lot. I work in Christian contemporary music. I work with singer-songwriters. Lately, I've been doing a lot of like folk pop singer-songwriter type stuff. So like Noah Kahan is Lizzie McAlpine type stuff with some artists. And that's just kind of fallen into my lap because I've been in some circles with some really cool artists and have hit it off well. But yeah, I just kind of work on songs around town for different artists. I don't really have a genre that I've defined myself as like I do this. It's usually pop singer-songwriter type stuff. And then I also work editing a lot of songs in town for other producers, editing vocals or drums or guitars. So that's kind of what I do day in and day out to pay the bills is write and produce and edit. Yeah.
Hey, living the dream, man.
Yeah.
Living the dream.
We're getting there. We're getting there.
So how did you get into it all?
Yeah. So I was raised just learning to play the piano from my parents. They gave me piano lessons since I was 7 and so thankful for that still. And it just kind of went from there. When it really opened up was when I turned 11, 12, and I was able to just pick up a book from the store. I went to the music store and was like, oh my gosh, I loved The Lord of the Rings at the time and all the music scores from that. So just as soon as I realized that I can walk up to the shelf, grab this book that has the scores from The Lord of the Rings and just play it on the piano, it was like, oh, I don't wow, I don't just have to play the things that my piano teacher gave me. And that's what kind of sparked creativity in me. And then I picked up guitar, played in church for years. And then I'd come to Nashville a couple of times, was just interested in music. I came to a music camp that ended up being held at the same school that I went to eventually in Nashville at Trevecca. And that was a great experience. And that's what made me realize I can do this for real. Like doing music seemed like a pie in the sky thing that I could maybe do someday, but people like famous people in LA make music, not just random people make a career out of music. So coming to Nashville to that music camp, and it was just for kids who were interested in the music industry, called Camp Electric. But yeah, it was a great experience because I met some just journeyman songwriters who'd been doing it for a long time, and getting to talk to them personally and hear them say, this is a real career and it's not glamorous, but you can have a wife and kids in a house and be a songwriter for a living. And it doesn't come easy. You have to work for it. But that's what I needed to hear. And I was like, if I can do it, if I can work hard enough and be a songwriter and support a family, then I want to do that. I want to give it a shot. So, yeah, I was originally going to be a biochemistry major, which is a wild left turn. I was going to North Idaho College. I had finished my freshman year at the end of high school because I got some credits out of the way. But then like June, I was the age of a freshman, but I was a sophomore, and I decided I'm just going to transfer all my credits and see if I can get into the music program. And so finished my associates at NIC and then transferred down to Trevecca and finished my degree in music. Yeah, and it's been a heck of a ride. Since then, I landed an internship with a producer in town who signed with Sony Records. And so that was the other big open door for me. He was the one who really showed me the ropes and was like, man, here's what it looks like to be a producer and songwriter day in and day out. This is the level of professionalism that's expected. He taught me how to edit vocals. Super thankful. Nick Schwartz is his name. Check him out. Yeah. Great producer. He just had a #1 on country radio, which is super cool. Got to be there to celebrate with him. Yeah. But anyway, that's kind of the bullet points, my story getting into the music industry here.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
It's a journey, man. It's kind of crazy. Everyone's got a sometimes roundabout way of getting there, but you made it, and you're doing it. And so where do you want to go?
Man, I would love to just produce songs for artists and be able to help artists say something that is meaningful, say something that lasts. That's the dream. I don't need #1s. I want to support a family and I want to help artists, share a message that's worth sharing with the world. And it's so cool to finally build a community of people who want to do that too. Yeah. Super thankful for the people I get to work with every day. But yeah, that's the goal. I mean, radio singles, all that'd be great, but I'm just trying to take it day by day and write great songs. And if we get there, we get there.
Yeah. Honestly, it makes a lot of sense with the album you chose too.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, this is interesting. This isn't like a major album. This isn't like one of the classics that, I typically think that people would choose. And,
sure.
Something that's really important for you. I know earlier on you mentioned that you had some honorable mentions. I was just curious, what are some of those albums that you were considering?
I'm a huge John Bellion fan. So the new Tori Kelly record is incredible. It's so good. Tori Kelly, I feel like, is someone who has just kind of genre hopped her whole career and hasn't really found someone who can fit her incredible vocals. I am biased, but I think she's probably the most talented vocalist alive right now. Just blow the roof off a building vocals, hearing her live. But John Bellion, with the latest record that they put out, was able to just be so unique, and some of it is like a 90s R&B type thing, but also very pop. Some of it is just straight John Bellion. It sounds like a John Bellion song, but it's Tori Kelly singing incredible vocals on it. The songwriting is good. Cool messages and thoughts in the songs. The production is insane. I just think it's a great pop album that's not getting as much attention as I think it should. It's amazing, and he's able to let her vocal shine and still be himself and do all the cool production that John Bellion does. Like, he does Justin Bieber's stuff, and then he's also doing Tori Kelly stuff, and he does John Batiste stuff. It's incredible. Yeah, that guy is just a monster of a producer and someone that I look up to. That's definitely on the list. There's a band called Gable Price and Friends, and they have a record called Jungle in the City that just came out that I'm a huge fan of too. And it's a little more like emo punk, not emo, but like alternative rock leaning, really cool. They grew up in the church and are just kind of talking about the struggles of faith and what it means to trust the Lord with their lives, but also life sucks sometimes. And it's all packaged up in a album that's really, really well done, great musicianship, and really fun. So both of those were other ones that I definitely thought about bringing up. Yeah, those are new albums too. So I know it's not like your Rolling Stones or whatever, but yeah, those records are amazing. Definitely worth giving a listen.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense though. I was thinking about it. I was like, I mean, as a producer, you're staying up with new music, like you're listening to new stuff, seeing what other people are doing, getting inspiration from that type of stuff. I imagine, is that kind of a part of your process as a producer? Well, you're constantly getting references from artists who say, hey, I want to do something like this. So you're listening to, maybe it's not even something that you would ever pull up on your own, but
someone says, hey, I love, like, Lizzie McAlpine is so cool, but I wouldn't have like pulled up her stuff and listened to it other than behind a TikTok video every once in a while. But when someone sends you like, hey, I'm doing a Lizzie McAlpine type thing, and then you go and you do a deep dive on her stuff, all of a sudden you really appreciate artists that you never would have listened to before. And it's usually new music. Yeah, it's a big part of the job, is just listening through new things and interesting things and things that you never think you'd hear before, to the point where you almost wonder, like, what kind of music do I like? All I do is listening to the music that other people like and want to sound like.
Yeah, I mean, how do you balance that as somebody who makes music? Like, kind of trying to replicate a sound you like versus just being completely innovative and making something that's completely you.
I think you have to recognize that everything is derivative, first of all. So it's okay to take you should never copy anything, but to go, dang, I really like the tone in that snare, or whatever the heck they're doing with the delays on those vocals is so cool, and I want to use that. But then I think it really has to stop there. It has to stop at, here's the elements that I really like. I heard John Mayer say it once. He's like, the way to become a great musician is to not stop at, I like that song, but why do I like that song? What are the pieces that put together to make that song really good? Take the song apart, learn why you like it, and then take those building blocks and use it to make yourself your own artist. You can't go further than that, otherwise you're copying someone. But taking a song apart to its bare bones, to its building blocks, and saying, this is what I like about it and this is why, then you can take that and use that in your own work.
Yeah, that's a cool perspective.
Yeah.
I'm always curious about that. There's always just a fine line, you know?
Yeah.
Gotta be careful.
Well, they also say 7 notes. Your melody you can't have the same 7 notes in a row or you'll get sued.
How many times have you been making something? You're like, oh, that sounds good. But then you're like, oh no, that sounds familiar.
More often than you'd think, because everyone's written everything before. There's 12 notes or 11 notes, I guess. And you gotta make what you can with what you've got. And unless you can pick notes in between, not many people do that. So yeah, sometimes you'll just be writing and you'll be like, man, this is such a cool melody. Why is it so cool? And then all of a sudden you're just humming it and you're not singing the words that you're writing to it. And you go, dang, because someone else already wrote it. All right, scrap that.
That's always tough, I imagine. You're like, dang it.
Yep. You're like, man, it's such a good idea. And you kind of feel good because you're like, I did come up with it. I didn't just copy someone, but it's already taken. Dang it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what's interesting on the album you chose too. I mean, it seemed familiar, but it was still unique.
Yeah.
You know, trying to get that kind of balance, I imagine, is difficult. Do you have any idea of how you do that as a producer, as a musician?
To get a unique
something that sounds familiar but still unique, you know?
Sure. Yeah, I think it comes from, you probably have to have some sort of touchstone or reference that you know you're shooting for. So if I know someone, the latest thing, I know I keep saying Lizzie McAlpine, but that's the reference that I've been working with most recently, and you go, okay, so it's tons of guitars stacked on top of each other and spaced out. It's vocals that are super tight and close, and then they get big on the chorus. And so things like that, knowing your references and why you're doing something is really important. And then also knowing, not tropes, but like what makes this record sound the way it does, or what makes a genre sound the way it does. So a certain bass tone on an alternative rock thing is going to make it sound similar to something you've heard before versus a chicken picking guitar lick. A country thing on a Telecaster is going to give it twang and make it sound southern. Yeah, I'm thinking specifically about the Jordy record. I really think it was probably recorded on tape. And I don't know how technical you want to get, but things like recording on tape using real analog synthesizers and real analog effects will really go a long way to making it sound like something that fits in with a record from the 80s or something from the Motown era, even earlier than that. And yeah, there's specific things with like gear that you can use that can sound like it ages a record just because the gear you're using is from that time. And then you get kind of like a new song that's a time capsule from whatever era the things you're using to record the song were made in. It's pretty incredible. So, and that's something that once you have the budget, then you can really invest in something like that. But for the rest of us, we're just trying to get as close as we can with what we have when we can't rent a $10,000 microphone to cut vocals. Yeah,
Right.
yeah. Lots of different ways to get there, but I hope I answered that question okay.
No, that makes a lot of sense because that's what I was pulling from. Like the first couple songs, he's really soulful, and it definitely feels like kind of an old soul type of sound. And
Yeah.
I was like, that's kind of cool. Like, how do you recreate it, but it still sounds different? And I think it makes a lot of sense, like what you're saying. Like you use some of the elements, kind of like what you said with that John Mayer quote in the same breath. Like you use some of those elements that you love, but you still then figure out a way to make it your own. And that's kind of a cool idea.
Yeah.
So how are you doing that in your own music, man? What are you up to? Are you have some projects coming up?
Yeah, so we've got a couple of projects that are coming out soon. A girl named Josie Edwards, super cool voice, folk pop. I got to do the vocals on her next 2 singles coming out, and then we're writing some more. So that's one that I'm really proud of, that I've been able to work with her. Super excited. Another artist named Mary Lou Lackey, really great Southern killer folk guitar, mandolin player, but also artist. And she's kind of up and coming, and I've been able to write with her. Got on a couple of the singles that she will be putting out soon. Yeah, super cool. Super excited to work with them.
That's awesome, man. And if somebody wants to hear like some of the work that you've put out already, what are some songs or albums or that they could check out?
Let's see. So Andrew Ripp is the guy I was trying to think of. He's got sort of that same old soul kind of songwriting thing, but very pop. And he also swings into Christian music a little bit too. Super cool. I've been able to work on the vocals for most of his music that's come out recently. That's been super cool. There's a country artist who I've also been able to work with named Baldridge, and he's been amazing to work with. A guy named his artist name is itsjustrand. Another guy he's my neighbor, and he's been super fun to write and work alongside. Yeah, I have a website if you want to check out any of the tracks that I've worked on personally. It's goodnaturemusicco.com, and that's a mouthful. But yeah, I have a catalog, a playlist of all the stuff I've worked on if anyone wants to check that out.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll be sure to include it in the link and get some people to hear what you're making, man.
Awesome.
Well, thank you for coming on the podcast, Eli, and I can't wait to hear what you have coming out, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, just happy to hang and talk music anytime. If you want to have me back, I'd love to talk about another album. So, yeah. Thanks
awesome,
so much.
Man. Thank you.